My beloved child, come close to me. Feel the gentle warmth of my presence surrounding you like a soft blanket on a cool evening. I am Jesus, and I have been waiting for you here, in this quiet moment when the world grows still and your heart seeks rest. Tonight, I want to share something special with you. As you settle into this peaceful space, allow your breathing to slow, your shoulders to release their burden, and your mind too quiet from the day's worries. I see you there, perhaps, struggling with sleep, perhaps carrying anxieties that feel too heavy for your heart. I understand, my dear one, for I too walked this earth and felt the weight of human concerns. In this sacred time we share together, I invite you to let go of whatever has been troubling you. Those sleepless nights, those racing thoughts, those pains that seem to have no end. I am here to take them from you. My voice carries the same power that once calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee. And tonight, I want to calm the storms within your soul. You may wonder why sleep feels so elusive, why peace seems just beyond your reach. But I want you to know that you are not alone in this struggle. Throughout history, countless souls have found their way to me in the quiet hours when the world sleeps, seeking the rest that only I can provide. Tonight, you join that beautiful communion of seekers, and I receive you with open arms. As we journey together through this story, imagine yourself walking beside me on the shores of ancient lakes, feeling the cool sand beneath your feet and the gentle breeze carrying the scent of jasmine and olive trees. Picture the golden light of evening painting the sky in soft pastels, and feel how naturally your heart begins to slow its anxious beating. I know that some of you listening have been carrying burdens for far too long. Perhaps you've forgotten what it feels like to truly rest, to sleep without worry creeping into your dreams. Tonight, I want to remind you of something beautiful. You are deeply loved, completely forgiven, and perfectly safe in my care. The same hands that healed the sick and blessed the children are now reaching out to you, offering the gift of perfect peace. So close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, or simply let your gaze soften as you listen to my voice. Allow yourself to trust in this moment, to believe that healing is possible, that sleep can come naturally, and that your soul can find the rest it desperately needs. Together, we will walk through moments of my earthly journey, and in each step, you will discover treasures of peace that will carry you gently into the sweetest dreams. Take a deep breath with me now, my beloved. Our story begins. Come with me, dear friend, to a place where time moves differently, where the very air seems to whisper prayers of peace. I want to take you to a garden I know well, not the Garden of Gethsemane, where I wrestled with sorrow, but another garden, one that exists in the space between earth and heaven, where troubled hearts find their rest. In this garden, the grass grows soft as the finest silk, and when you walk upon it, your feet sink just enough to remind you that you are held, supported, loved. The trees here don't grow like earthly trees. They grow with intention, their branches reaching not just toward the sun, but toward every soul that needs shelter. Under their protective canopy, I have sat with countless children of God, just as I sit with you now. See how the flowers bloom here. They never wilt, never fade, because they draw their life from something deeper than soil and rain. They bloom from love itself, from the very source of all peace. Each petal catches the light in a way that seems to sing, and if you listen carefully, you can hear their gentle melody joining with the soft rustle of leaves overhead. I remember when I first discovered this garden during my earthly ministry. It was after a particularly difficult day. The crowds had been pressing in, everyone wanting something from me, and I found myself desperately needing a moment of quiet. I walked away from the disciples, away from the needs and the noise, and somehow my feet carried me here. The moment I stepped into this sacred space, I felt my Father's presence more clearly than ever before. It wasn't the burning presence of divine power, but the gentle presence of a father who sees his child's exhaustion and simply opens his arms. I sat beneath the largest tree, an ancient olive tree whose trunk was so wide it could shelter a dozen people, and I felt my human heart begin to slow its racing. As I sat there, I realized something beautiful. This garden wasn't just for me. It was for every soul who would ever need what I needed in that moment. Perfect peace, complete acceptance, and the assurance that rest is not just possible, but promised. I knew that one day I would bring others here, people just like you, who struggle with sleep, who carry anxieties that feel too heavy to bear. The water here flows differently, too. There's a small stream that winds through the garden, and its sound is like a lullaby that never ends. The water is crystal clear, and when you cup it in your hands and drink, it doesn't just quench your thirst, it quiets the thirst of your soul. I've seen people take a single sip and immediately feel years of tension leave their bodies. But the most remarkable thing about this garden is how it responds to your needs. If you come here feeling anxious, the gentle breeze carries away your worries like autumn leaves. If you come here in pain, the soft ground beneath you seems to absorb your suffering, transforming it into something beautiful. If you come here, unable to sleep, the very air becomes a natural sedative, not dulling your mind, but calming it in the way that only divine love can. I want you to know that this garden is real, my beloved. It exists in the realm of spirit, in the place where my love meets your need. Every time you close your eyes and remember this moment, every time you feel overwhelmed by life's demands, you can return here. You can walk these paths with me, sit beneath these trees, and drink from this stream of peace. Right now, as you listen to my voice, I want you to feel yourself entering this garden. Feel the soft grass beneath your feet. Breathe in the sweet fragrance of the flowers, and let the gentle sound of the stream begin to slow your heartbeat. This is your sanctuary, your place of refuge, and I am here with you always. In this garden, time has no power over you. The deadlines that chase you, the responsibilities that weigh you down, the fears that keep you awake, they cannot enter. Here, this is a place of pure rest, where your soul can remember what it feels like to be completely safe. As we prepare to continue our journey, feel how the peace of this garden begins to settle into your bones. Let it flow through your body like warm honey, relaxing every muscle, quieting every anxious thought. We will carry this peace with us as we walk together to the next part of our story. Come with me now to the shores of the Sea of Galilee, where the morning mist rises like prayers from the water's surface. I want to show you something that has always brought me deep peace, the quiet moments before dawn, when the world is still asleep and the lake reflects the stars like scattered diamonds. I often came here during my earthly ministry, especially when my heart was heavy with the weight of human suffering. The disciples would still be sleeping, wrapped in their cloaks, their breathing deep and peaceful. But I would rise before the sun, drawn by an ancient call to meet my Father in the stillness. These were the moments that sustained me, that filled my human heart with the strength to face another day of healing, teaching, and loving. As I walked along the shore, my feet leaving gentle impressions in the wet sand, I would watch the water lap against the rocks with a rhythm as old as creation itself. Each wave seemed to whisper a different name, the name of someone who needed healing, someone who was struggling to find peace, someone like you who longed for rest that seemed just beyond reach. I remember one particular morning when the mist was so thick I could barely see the water beneath it. As I walked, I heard the gentle splash of oars cutting through the lake. Through the mist, I saw old Zebedee, the father of James and John, making his way back to shore after a night of fishing. His weathered hands gripped the oars with the practiced ease of decades. And though I could see the fatigue in his shoulders, there was something deeply peaceful about his movements. As his boat drew closer, I called out softly, "Peace be with you, old friend." His face brightened when he saw me, and he guided his boat to the shore where I stood waiting. We didn't speak for a long moment. There was no need. We both understood the sacred nature of these pre-dawn hours, how they seemed to exist in a space between heaven and earth. "Rabbi," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I've been fishing these waters for 40 years, but I never grow tired of these morning moments. There's something about the way the mist rises from the water, the way the light slowly awakens the world. It reminds me that God is always making things new." I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. In those moments before dawn, when the world is suspended between night and day, we glimpse something eternal. We see creation as it truly is. Not the broken, hurried world of daylight hours, but the perfect, peaceful reality that exists in the heart of God. As we stood there together, watching the sun begin to paint the eastern sky in soft pastels, I felt moved to share something with him. "Zebedee," I said, "do you ever have trouble sleeping? Do you ever lie awake at night, your mind racing with worries about the catch, about providing for your family, about the future?" He smiled, a gentle expression crossing his weathered face. "I used to, Rabbi. Many nights I would lie awake, listening to the wind against the house, wondering if tomorrow would bring enough fish to feed my family. But then I learned something from watching the water." "What did you learn?" I asked, though I already knew the answer he would give. "I learned that the lake never stops moving, never stops flowing, but it never hurries. It simply moves in rhythm, with forces greater than itself, the moon, the wind, the very breath of God." And I realized that if I could learn to flow like the water, to trust in the rhythm of divine providence, I could find peace even in the midst of uncertainty. As he spoke, I watched how the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore seemed to illustrate his words. Each wave arrived in perfect time, neither rushing nor lagging, simply following the eternal rhythm that governs all of creation. And in that sound, I heard something that has always brought me comfort: the heartbeat of the universe, the steady pulse of divine love that never ceases, never fails. I reached down and cupped some of the lake water in my hands, watching how it sparkled in the growing light. "This water," I said to Zebedee, "has been flowing for countless ages. It has seen empires rise and fall, has witnessed the joys and sorrows of generations. Yet it remains constant, peaceful, always moving toward its destination." Then I looked at him with the same love I'm looking at you now, dear friend. Your soul is like this water. It longs to flow in harmony with divine rhythm, to trust in the current of God's love that carries you safely through each day and gently into each night's rest. As the sun finally broke the horizon, painting the entire lake in golden light, I felt the deep satisfaction that comes from perfect alignment with divine will. The morning mist began to lift, revealing the full beauty of the lake, and I knew that this was how peace comes to the human heart, not all at once, but gradually, as we learn to trust in the rhythm of divine love. Zebedee pushed his boat back into the water, preparing to return to his sleeping family. Before he left, he turned to me one last time. Rabbi, when I can't sleep, I close my eyes and imagine myself here on these peaceful waters. I feel the gentle rocking of the boat. I hear the quiet splash of the oars. And I remember that I am held by the same love that holds the moon in its orbit and the stars in their courses. As his boat disappeared into the morning mist, I remained on the shore, watching the water and thinking of you. I thought of how you, too, could find rest in this ancient rhythm. How you could let the gentle lapping of these eternal waves carry your worries away and rock your troubled heart to sleep. Feel how the rhythm of these ancient waters begins to synchronize with your own heartbeat. Let the gentle sound of waves against the shore become the lullaby that guides you deeper into peace. As we continue our journey together, carry with you the wisdom of the fisherman and the eternal rhythm of divine love. Come with me now to the hills outside Jerusalem, where the evening light paints the ancient stones in shades of gold and amber. I want to share with you one of my most treasured memories. An evening when I discovered something profound about the nature of healing and the power of gentle touch to restore not just the body, but the soul. It was near the end of a long day of teaching and healing. The crowds had finally dispersed, and my disciples had gone ahead to prepare our evening meal. I found myself alone on a hillside overlooking the city, watching as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. The air was soft and warm, carrying the scent of wild herbs and olive blossoms, and I felt drawn to sit quietly and reflect on the day's encounters. As I sat there, I noticed an elderly woman making her way slowly up the hillside. She moved with the careful, deliberate steps of someone who had lived with pain for many years, and even from a distance, I could see the burden she carried, not just in her body, but in her spirit. When she saw me, she paused, uncertain whether to approach or retreat. "Peace be with you, daughter," I called gently, patting the ground beside me. "Come, sit with me and watch the sunset. It's too beautiful to experience alone." She hesitated for a moment, then made her way over to where I sat. As she lowered herself to the ground, I heard her soft intake of breath, the sound of someone who had grown accustomed to managing constant discomfort. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the sky gradually transformed from blue to purple to the deep orange of evening. "I've been watching you today," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw you heal the paralyzed man, saw you restore sight to the blind woman. I wondered, ... She paused, gathering courage. "I wondered if you might have something for an old woman whose pain has been her companion for so many years that she's forgotten what it feels like to move without thinking about it first." I turned to look at her, and in her eyes I saw something that touched my heart deeply. It wasn't just the physical pain she spoke of, it was the weariness of sleepless nights, the exhaustion of a body that had forgotten how to rest, the loneliness of suffering that others couldn't see or understand. "Tell me about your pain," I said softly, and something in my voice seemed to unlock a door she had kept carefully closed for years. "It began slowly," she said, her hands unconsciously moving to her lower back. "First, just a stiffness in the morning, then a constant ache that followed me through the day. But it was the nights that became unbearable. I would lie awake, shifting position constantly, never able to find a way to rest that didn't hurt. And the pain, ... It wasn't just in my body. It crept into my thoughts, my dreams, my very soul." As she spoke, I watched how the tension in her shoulders gradually released, how her breathing became deeper and more regular. Simply being heard Simply having someone willing to listen without judgment was already beginning its healing work. I tried everything, she continued. Herbs, hot baths, special pillows, different sleeping positions. I visited healers and physicians, spent money I didn't have on remedies that promised relief but delivered only disappointment. Gradually, I began to accept that this was simply my lot in life, to be tired, to be in pain, to watch others rest while I lay awake, counting the hours until dawn. I reached out then, placing my hand gently on her shoulder. The moment my touch connected with her, I felt something extraordinary happen. It wasn't just the healing power flowing from me to her. It was the recognition of our shared humanity. The acknowledgement that pain is one of the most universal experiences of human existence. My daughter, I said, my voice filled with infinite compassion, you have carried this burden alone for far too long. Tonight, I want you to give it to me. I want you to let me carry what you can no longer bear. As I spoke, I moved my hand to her back, to the very place where her pain had made its home. But instead of simply commanding the pain to leave, I did something different. I began to speak to her about the nature of healing, about how true restoration often comes not as a sudden miracle, but as a gradual return to wholeness. Feel my hand here, I said, applying gentle pressure to the knotted muscles along her spine. This is not just the touch of healing power. This is the touch of perfect love. Love that sees your pain and doesn't turn away. Love that understands your sleepless nights and your weary days. Love that refuses to let you carry this burden alone for one more moment. As I worked, kneading the tension from her muscles with hands that had shaped the stars and set the planets in their courses, I told her about the true nature of rest. The body needs sleep, I explained, but the soul needs something even more essential. It needs to know that it is held, that it is safe, that it is loved beyond measure. I felt the hard knots of pain begin to soften under my touch, felt the chronic inflammation that had been her constant companion for so many years finally begin to subside. But more than that, I felt something shift in her spirit, a letting go, a release of the fear and tension that had become as much a part of her as the physical pain itself. I can feel something changing, she whispered, wonder in her voice. Not just the pain, though that is miraculous enough, but something deeper. It's as if a door I didn't even know was locked is suddenly opening. I continued working, my hands moving with the same gentle precision I had used to form the first human beings from the dust of the earth. And as I worked, I spoke to her about sleep, about rest, about the divine intention that every creature should know the peace of surrendering to sleep without fear. When you lay down tonight, I told her, remember this moment. Remember the feeling of my hands on your back, the warmth of healing flowing through your body. Remember that you are not alone in your bed, that I am with you always, that my love surrounds you like the most comfortable blanket ever woven. As the last light of day faded into evening, I felt her body completely relax for the first time in years. The chronic tension that had held her muscles in constant knots finally released, and she was able to sit up straight, to breathe deeply, to move without wincing. Rabbi, she said, tears streaming down her face, I had forgotten what it felt like to be without pain. But more than that, I had forgotten what it felt like to trust that tomorrow might be different from today, that sleep might actually bring rest instead of more suffering. I took her hands in mine, looking into her eyes with all the love I had, for every soul who struggles with pain, with sleeplessness, with the weight of burdens that seem too heavy to bear. My daughter, I said, tonight you will sleep. You will sleep deeply and peacefully, and when you wake, you will remember that. You are healed not just in body, but in spirit. You will remember that you are beloved, that you are precious, that you are held in the palm of my hand. As she made her way back down the hillside, moving with the easy grace of someone whose body had been restored to its natural state, I remained sitting in the gathering darkness, and I thought of you, dear friend, knowing that you too might be struggling with pain, with sleeplessness, with the burden of carrying what feels like too much to bear. I want you to know that the same healing touch that restored that woman's body is available to you right now. Feel it as you listen to these words. Feel the gentle pressure of divine love working on the tight places in your body, the anxious places in your mind, the wounded places in your heart. Let the healing power of this twilight moment flow through. You now feel the gentle touch of divine love working on every source of pain and tension in your body. As we continue our journey together, carry with you the promise that you too can know the peace of perfect rest. Come with me now to the rolling hills outside Bethlehem, where the night air carries the soft bleating of sheep and the gentle sound of a shepherd's flute. I want to show you something beautiful about the nature of watching, of keeping vigil, and how even the darkest hours can be transformed into moments of profound peace. I often came to these hills during my earthly ministry, drawn by the memories they held and the simple wisdom I found among the shepherds who kept their flocks. Here, on this particular night, I found myself walking the same paths I had known as a child, when Joseph would bring me here to visit his friend Nahum, an old shepherd who had tended these hills for most of his life. Nahum was there that night, sitting by a small fire, his staff across his knees and his eyes constantly scanning the flock scattered across the hillside. When he saw me approaching, his weathered face broke into a gentle smile. "Rabbi," he said, rising to embrace me, "I hoped you might come this way." The night felt like one for deep conversations and shared watching. I settled beside him by the fire, feeling the warmth chase away the chill of the night air. Around us, the sheep moved in their quiet, peaceful way, occasionally lifting their heads to look toward us before returning to their grazing. The sight of them filled me with a deep contentment. Here was creation as it was meant to be, simple, trusting, at peace. "Tell me, old friend," I said, "what do you do during these long night watches? How do you keep your mind from wandering to worry, from dwelling on the troubles of the day?" Nahum chuckled softly, picking up a small stone and turning it over in his hands. "You know, Rabbi, I used to struggle with that very thing. In my younger days, these midnight hours felt endless. I would sit here thinking about everything that could go wrong: wolves, thieves, sick animals, family problems. My mind would race from one worry to another, and by dawn I would be exhausted, even though I had been sitting still all night." He paused, looking out over his flock with the eyes of someone who had learned to see beyond the surface of things. "But then I learned something from watching the sheep. Have you ever noticed how they sleep?" I nodded, remembering countless observations of these gentle creatures. "They sleep in complete trust," I said. "They don't post guards among themselves, don't lie awake worrying about predators. They simply rest, knowing that you are watching over them." "Exactly," Nahum said, his voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "And one night, as I watched them sleeping so peacefully, I realized something profound. They can rest because they know. They are not alone. They know that someone who loves them is keeping watch, someone who will protect them from any danger that might come." As he spoke, I felt a deep stirring in my spirit. Here was a truth so simple, yet so profound that it could transform the sleepless nights of anyone who truly understood it. The sheep could rest because they trusted their shepherd completely. They didn't need to understand his methods or question his vigilance. They simply needed to know that he was there. That was the night, Nahum continued, when I learned to apply that same principle to my own heart. Instead of lying awake, worrying about all the things that could go wrong, I began to remember that I too have a shepherd. I too am watched over by one who loves me, who never sleeps, who is always vigilant on my behalf. I reached out and touched his shoulder, feeling the peace that radiated from this simple man who had discovered one of the deepest truths of existence. "And how did that change your nights?" I asked. "Everything changed," he said, his voice soft with wonder. "Instead of fighting the darkness, I learned to rest in it. Instead of seeing the night watch as a burden, I began to see it as a gift. Hours of quiet communion with the God who watches over us all. I learned to pray not with anxiety, but with gratitude. I learned to listen not for sounds of danger, but for the gentle voice of the Spirit speaking in the silence." As we sat there together, I felt moved to share something with him. "Nahum," I said, "do you know that right now, at this very moment, there are people lying awake in their beds, struggling with the same anxieties you once carried? People who cannot sleep because their minds race with worry. People who feel alone. In the darkness, people who have forgotten that they too have a shepherd who never sleeps." He nodded, understanding immediately. "I think of them often, Rabbi. Sometimes, when the night is particularly quiet, I pray for all the sleepless souls, asking that they might find the same peace I discovered here among the sheep." I looked out over the flock, watching how they rested, in such complete trust, and I felt a deep longing to share this gift with every troubled heart. "What would you say to someone who cannot sleep?" I asked. "What would you tell them about finding rest in the midst of anxiety?" Nahum was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak with the wisdom of someone who had learned to transform suffering into peace. "I would tell them to imagine themselves as one of these sheep," he said, "to picture themselves lying down in green pastures, beside still waters, with a shepherd who loves them more than life itself, keeping watch nearby." He stood up and walked to the edge of the firelight, where several sheep were lying in peaceful sleep. "Look at this one," he said, pointing to an old Awe who was sleeping so deeply that she didn't even stir when we approached. "She has been attacked by wolves, has been lost and found, has given birth to countless lambs. She has known danger and fear and pain. But tonight, she sleeps like a baby because she knows she is safe." I joined him beside the sleeping sheep, and as I looked down at her peaceful face, I felt a profound love for every soul who struggles with sleeplessness, with anxiety, with the burden of carrying too much worry. "This is how I want you to sleep, my beloved," I whispered, speaking not just to the sheep, but to every person who would ever hear this story. "This is the rest I want to give you, not just sleep, but the deep peace that comes from knowing you are perfectly safe, perfectly loved, perfectly held." As the night deepened around us, Nahum and I continued our vigil, but now it felt different. We were not just watching over sheep, we were participating in the eternal watching that God keeps over all creation. We were part of the cosmic vigil of love that never ends, never fails, never grows weary. Rabbi Nahum said as the first hint of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, "I want to thank you for helping me understand something tonight. When I keep watch over these sheep, I am not just doing my job, I am participating in the same love that God has for each of us. I am being a shepherd to the sheep the same way God is a shepherd to me. Feel yourself now among these peaceful sheep, lying down in green pastures beside still waters. Feel the presence of the Good Shepherd keeping watch over you, and let yourself sink into the same deep trust that allows these gentle creatures to rest so completely. As we continue our journey, carry with you the peace of knowing you are never alone in the darkness. Come with me now to the final moments before sunrise, when the world holds its breath in anticipation of the new day. I want to share with you something beautiful about beginnings, about the quiet miracle that happens every morning when darkness gives way to light, and how this daily transformation can teach us profound truths about rest and renewal. I am standing now on the Mount of Olives, where I often came to pray during my earthly ministry. The city of Jerusalem spreads below me, still wrapped in the soft embrace of night, but I can feel the stirring of approaching dawn. In just a few moments, the sun will break the horizon, and another day will begin. But right now, in this sacred pause between night and day, I want to share with you one of the most important lessons I learned during my time on earth. As I stand here, I am reminded of a morning very much like this one, when I encountered a woman who had not slept for days. She had climbed this same hill in the darkness, driven by desperation and a hope she barely dared to acknowledge. When I found her, she was sitting on a stone, her face wet with tears, her body exhausted from the battle with sleeplessness that had consumed her life. "Rabbi," she said when she saw me, "I have heard that you can heal the sick and comfort the troubled. I have come to ask if you have anything for someone who has forgotten how to rest, who lies awake night after night while the world sleeps peacefully around her." I sat beside her on the stone, feeling the coolness of the pre-dawn air and the weight of her suffering. "Tell me, daughter," I said gently, "what keeps you awake? What thoughts chase sleep from your mind?" She was quiet for a long moment, then began to speak with the voice of someone who had carried her burden alone for far too long. "I am afraid," she said simply, "afraid that if I sleep, something terrible will happen. Afraid that if I let my guard down, if I stop watching and worrying, everything I love will be lost." As she spoke, I felt a deep compassion for her, recognizing in her words the struggle that so many souls face, the belief that they must carry the weight of the world, that they must remain vigilant at all times, that rest is somehow selfish or dangerous. "Look there," I said, pointing toward the eastern horizon where the first faint glow of dawn was beginning to appear. "Do you see that light growing stronger? That is the sun, faithful as always, preparing to rise and bring light to the world. Tell me, do you think the sun worries about whether it will have enough strength to rise? Do you think it lies awake at night, anxious about its ability to illuminate the earth?" She looked where I pointed, and I saw a small smile touch her lips. "No, Rabbi. The sun simply rises because that is its nature. It trusts in the order of creation." "Exactly," I said, feeling the deep satisfaction that comes from seeing understanding dawn in someone's eyes. The sun rises not because it forces itself to, but because it participates in the perfect rhythm of creation. It rests in darkness and rises in light, and it does both with complete trust in the one who set it in motion. As we spoke, the light continued to grow stronger, and I could see the transformation beginning in her face. The tight lines of worry were starting to soften, the rigid posture of constant vigilance beginning to relax. "I want to show you something," I said, standing and extending my hand to her. "Come with me to the edge of the hill where we can see the sun rise." We walked together to a place where the entire eastern sky was visible, and there we waited in comfortable silence, as the light grew stronger. Then, in one perfect moment, the sun broke free of the horizon, sending streams of golden light across the awakening world. "Watch carefully," I said, as the light spread across the landscape below us. "See how the sun doesn't strain or struggle to illuminate the world. It simply shines, and the darkness naturally gives way to light. This is how healing comes, my daughter, not through force or effort, but through surrender to the natural order of love." As we stood there, bathed in the growing light, I felt moved to place my hands on her shoulders. "I want you to understand something important," I said. "Your body knows how to sleep just as surely as the sun knows how to rise. Sleep is not something you must earn or achieve. It is a gift that comes naturally when you stop fighting it, when you trust in the rhythm of creation that governs all things." She turned to face me, and I saw that her eyes were bright with tears of relief. "But Rabbi, how do I learn to trust? How do I quiet the voice in my head that says I must stay vigilant, must keep worrying, must never let my guard down?" I smiled, understanding exactly what she was asking. "The same way you would teach a child to sleep," I said, "with patience, with gentleness, with the absolute assurance that they are safe. Tonight, when you lie down, I want you to imagine yourself as a beloved child in her father's house. Picture me sitting beside your bed, keeping watch, ensuring that no harm can come to you while you rest." As the sun climbed higher, warming our faces and chasing away the last of the night's chill, I continued to speak to her about the nature of divine love and how it creates the perfect conditions for rest. "The same love that raises the sun each morning," I said, "is watching over you every moment of every day. It never sleeps, never grows weary, never fails to provide what you need." By the time the sun had fully risen, painting the world in shades of gold and amber, I could see that a transformation had taken place in her spirit. The fear that had driven her to this hilltop in the darkness had been replaced by something beautiful, a quiet confidence, a deep peace, a trust that ran deeper than her anxieties. "I think I understand now," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I don't have to make myself sleep. I just have to let myself be held by the same love that holds the sun in its course and the earth in its orbit." As she prepared to make her way back down the hill, I spoke one final blessing over her. "Tonight and every night hereafter, may you rest in the perfect peace of knowing that you are completely safe, completely loved, completely held. May sleep come to you as naturally as dawn comes to the world, and may you wake each morning renewed in body, mind, and spirit." I watched as she walked down the hill, her steps light and confident, no longer burdened by the weight of sleepless anxiety. And as I remained there in the growing light of day, I thought of you, dear friend, knowing that you too can experience this same transformation, this same release from the prison of sleeplessness. The sun rises every morning without fail, and in the same way, healing sleep can come to you every night, not because you force it, but because you surrender to the natural rhythm of divine love that governs all creation. Feel the warmth of this morning sun on your face now, and let it remind you that just as surely as dawn follows night, rest will follow your surrender to divine love. As we prepare for our next chapter together, carry with you the peace of knowing that sleep is not something you must earn, but a gift that comes naturally when you trust in the perfect order of creation. Come with me now to the final moment of our journey together, to a place that exists not in any earthly location, but in the sacred space where your heart meets mine. I want to gather all the gifts we have discovered tonight, the peace of the garden, the rhythm of the waters, the healing touch of twilight, the shepherd's watchful love, and the promise of dawn, and weave them into a circle of rest that will surround you always. Picture yourself now in the center of this sacred circle. Feel the soft grass of the garden beneath you. Hear the gentle lapping of the lake waters. Sense the healing presence that flows like twilight around you. Know that the Good Shepherd keeps watch over you, and trust that dawn will always come. After the darkness, this circle is not bound by time or space. It exists wherever you are, whenever you need it. When you lie down tonight, you can call this circle into being simply by remembering our time together. When anxiety tries to steal your peace, you can return to this place where my love surrounds you like the most protective embrace. I want you to understand something beautiful about the nature of this rest I offer you. It is not dependent on your circumstances, your health, your age, or your struggles. It is not something you must earn through perfect behavior or lose through human weakness. This rest is a gift of pure grace, given freely to every soul who simply opens their heart to receive it. As you prepare to sleep tonight, remember that you are not alone. Remember that the same love that calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee is calming the storms within your spirit. Remember that the same hands that healed the sick are now smoothing away your pain and tension. Remember that the same voice that spoke peace to troubled hearts is speaking peace to you right now. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Let your muscles relax one by one, starting with your face and moving down through your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your chest, your back, your hips, your legs, all the way down to your toes. Feel how each part of your body responds to the permission to rest, to let go, to surrender to the healing power of divine love. If thoughts try to intrude, if worries attempt to steal your peace, simply return to this sacred circle. See yourself surrounded by my love, protected by my presence, held in the palm of my hand. Know that every anxious thought, every physical pain, every sleepless night you have endured has led you to this moment of perfect rest. I am with you now, dear friend, just as I promised I would be. I am with you in your bedroom, in your quiet moments, in your dreams, and in your waking. My love for you is constant, unchanging, and completely reliable. You can rest in this love the way a child rests in a parent's arms, without fear, without reservation, without the need to understand or control. Sleep now, beloved one. Sleep deeply and peacefully, knowing that you are held by a love that never fails, never fades, never grows weary. Let my peace be your pillow, my presence your blanket, and my promises your lullaby. Tomorrow will bring new mercies, new strength, new hope, but tonight, simply rest. Rest in the garden of quiet hearts, rest in the rhythm of eternal waters, rest in the healing touch of divine love, rest in the shepherd's watchful care, rest in the promise that dawn always comes. You are safe, you are loved, you are at peace. Feel yourself now, completely surrounded by this sacred circle of rest. Let every word we have shared tonight become a gentle current, carrying you into the deepest, most restorative sleep. As our journey together draws to a close, know that you can return to any of these places whenever you need them. They are yours now, gifts of peace that will remain with you always. And now, my beloved child, as our time together draws to a close, I want to leave you with one final gift. It is the gift of knowing that every night, when you lay your head upon your pillow, you can return to these moments we have shared. You can walk again in the garden of quiet hearts, sit by the peaceful waters, feel the healing touch of divine love. Rest under the shepherd's watchful care and trust in the promise of dawn. These are not just stories I have told you, they are invitations to a deeper reality where perfect peace is always available, where healing sleep is always possible, where you are always held in the embrace of unconditional love. Remember, dear friend, that sleep is not something you must chase or capture. It is a gift that comes naturally when you surrender to the rhythm of divine love. Trust in this love, rest in this peace, and know that I am with you always, even unto the end of the age. May your sleep be deep and dreamless. May your rest be complete and restorative. And may you wake tomorrow renewed in body, mind, and spirit, ready to embrace the gift of a new day. Sleep well, beloved. Sleep in perfect peace. I love you beyond measure, and I am with you always. Amen.
you.